Okay, Erving, hello, and congratulations for the new book that you just published in the Gestalt Therapy book series that I chair. And
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to have a conversation with you after the publication of this book.
Yes.
So the book was introduced by Scott Churchill, a leading American scholar of academic phenomenology and actual president of a division of APA, the Society for Theoretical and Philosophical Psychology. And I would like to contextualize a little bit your book also in my life, because we have a long-term relationship. I met you when I was 23 and I came to La Jolla to train with you. And that was, was wonderful. You had already published the book, Gestalt Therapy Integrated, and it was a seminal work appreciated by all Gestalt psychotherapists, but also from other psychotherapists, because it was, academic enough and comprehensible enough. So it was a great work at that time. And my training in San Diego with you and Miriam was very important to me. I learned from you, I learned my aesthetic sense, like the ecstasy towards the blooming of a flower. And my book, The Now for Next in Psychotherapy, draws on that experience. Comes from that experience very much. So I'm very proud that the first book of this series, the Gestalt Therapy book series published by Routledge, is your book. And I feel proud that you published your book in this series, because you are very meaningful to me.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad to have had all those experiences with you and to be here now where we are so many years later, still talking and warmly and still growing. So it's a lovely thing.
Yes, yes. And you have been an author of major importance for Gestalt therapy since your first book that you authored with Miriam, Gestalt Therapy Integrated, and then Every Person's Life is Worth a Novel that you authored a few years later. The concept of enchantment that comes from every person's life was very clear since the beginning of your work. And you connected the function of therapy with the discovery of that enchantment. So the neurosis, the definition of neurosis that you gave, it's no longer about repression of unacceptable experiences or disowning parts of self, like Peirce said. But for you, neurosis is losing the feeling of being interesting. So like neglecting the aesthetic propensity for one's own vitality. And I think this is a very interesting concept about neurosis. Neurosis is to lose the interest in one's own curiosity, love, vitality, and to see our work as psychotherapists with this perspective, of discovering the interest in the client, not the hidden memories, but the interest, the aesthetic interest. I mean, this is very special thing. And I thank you for this theory that you have made.
Yes, well, it's a connectedness between what we normally think of as psychotherapy, which I believe is very important. I don't discount the importance of psychotherapy, but it's joined with the natural process of wanting to expand one's mind, of wanting to clarify one's mind, of wanting to accentuate and arouse one's mind. All of those and many other things that people live with every day, which has no requirement for having a therapeutically psychological problem. That you can be interested in those things without experiencing yourself as having a psychological problem. So obviously everybody has this problem or that problem, but they don't experience that as something for which they need to explore in order to solve, but they do need it in terms of expanding their minds.
Mhm. Yes. And
So I think we've neglected that aspect of psychotherapy. Not that that aspect doesn't exist, it does. Many people are interested in it, but it takes a back seat to the medical model
yes.
where the curative factor is central. And very often this leads to a medically oriented, medicine oriented system of trying to solve a symptom without entering into the person's life.
Yes. So,
Furthermore,
yes. So instead of looking for what doesn't work in a person, you have taught me to look at what vibrates in the person, what is vital in the person via an aesthetic tool, our senses.
yes, well, what people very often underestimate about therapy is that it is a very fascinating process. The idea of exploring one's mind is a fundamentally expansive process that taps into the mind as it is and shows the way to what it could be. And those are very tempting and arousing factors. In fact, we spend our lives reading books and poetry and philosophical treatises and religious principles and all kinds of things that enter into how we live our lives, quite irrespective of whether we have a diagnosable problem.
Yeah. Something that I have learned from you, and you probably don't speak very much about, is the body feelings and sensations. I think that in order to see the beauty of the person, to see the vitality of the person, you need to use your body very much. Do
Well,
you agree?
yes, you use your body. Very often, though, in Gestalt therapy and in other comparable therapies, the attention to the body has taken over from the attention to the kinds of things you would find in any other forms of human experience. So I think it's important to be tuned into the bodily experience, but not to make it the wherewithal of human experience. So, for example, in my earlier days, and I'm not up to date on this now, the body was worshipped in the therapy experience, quite distinct from one's view of one's life, one's ambitions, one's disappointments. Everything was thought of as a function. If only the body would work well, everything would be okay. Wilhelm Reich had a lot to say about that,
Yes.
and we picked up a lot from him, and I think benefited greatly, except I think it was overextended and it tended to make the therapy narrow rather than the broad one that it really is.
Yes. Mhm. And
So
another
if I say to somebody, uh, look, as you speak, when you come to the end of the sentence, you're coughing. Do you know it? Do you realize that? Well, that's a bodily pointer,
Mhm.
and they may or may not realize that they've been coughing after each sentence. Well, it makes a difference because we don't know the role that that coughing actually plays in the whole experience of the personhood of the person we're dealing with.
Yes.
It might play a minor role or it might play a
Mhm.
major role. Like the
Yes.
role of
Mhm.
spitting out the experience of what they just said, or it may play the role of uncertainty. It may play the role of nothing works, or it may play the role of you're not going to listen to me anyway. There's a major, I mean, there's a whole range of meaningfulness that
Mhm.
that cough can have.
Yeah. Well, I think that to see to be enchanted by the other and to work with enchantment, you need to be in contact with your own body to feel your own feelings, you know.
I mean, one needs to be in contact. I mean, one needs to be uh, tuned in
Mhm.
to one's needs. And sometimes those needs are bodily needs, and sometimes they're not. And there's a distinction to be made according to one's sensibilities for that person. So if you read a novel and it's totally about the body, you wouldn't be interested. There would have to be something else. If you read a novel that's totally about insights and nothing about the body, you would be missing something also. So what I think is important to know that Gestalt therapy is an integrative therapy, and that the whole range of personal experience either registers sharply or is dimly felt. It may play a role in the connectedness of the person with another person or with an idea, or it may be that it's a very shallow connectedness. Those are judgment calls to be made in the course of any particular therapy. And I'm aware of how broad Gestalt therapy can be and how narrow it often has become over the years. And I don't think I wouldn't want it to be narrow.
Yeah, sure. Um, Another concept that you bring is about communities, the life-focused community.
Yes.
So you say psychotherapy should be applied to common people because it's too good to be limited to the sick. And you propose this life-focused communities, a methodology for large groups with the aim of fostering in individuals a sense of belonging and of continuity. So
Yes, indeed.
this reminds to me and seems to me very much in line with the, let's say, social activism that animated Goodman and all the founding group of Gestalt therapy. You know, the concept of organism, environment, field has always been at the basis of Gestalt therapy. And so the being social, being active in society has always been one of our roots, one of our souls. So
Well,
do you connect it with that?
also one of our neglects.
Mm.
Now, Paul Goodman was very interested in the communal aspect of things, and But Fritz Perls was not much interested in the communal, even though he did belong to a community. But while I don't have any details, I doubt that he was involved in the details of the community as much as just being an idol whom people worshipped.
Well,
But
yeah. Well,
yeah,
he connected his idea of aggression also to the society and to the need of society to deal with aggression of people. But you mean maybe the way he worked was not very much connected with groups and society.
well, what I'm talking about is different from the what I would consider the social pathology of a society. It doesn't exclude it, but I want to include things like ambition, things like disappointment, things like feeling of belonging, the whole range of experiences which are part of the communal sensibility. The people need to belong with each other and need to have some sense of mutuality and help in getting to where they need to go, and correction when correction is called for, and a guiding orientation, which for me, replaces the guiding orientations of religion. Religion is a system of guidance and orientation. Psychotherapy is a system of guidance and orientation. But we have never really been willing to put ourselves out into the community with actual explorations of thematic parts of our lives. There are so many themes that matter to us and that we are very often individualized about and not really geared to the social need. So if you think of something like the Gestalt prayer, if we meet, it's fine. If we don't meet, that's fine too. Well, no, it's not fine if we don't meet. It's not. It's not. It's an easy way out of taking account of the complexity of people living together communally, needing each other, benefiting from each other, being disappointed by each other, being thwarted by each other, being injured by each other, and all the many things that happen to us in our relationship to the community. So we need some way of guiding people on the merits of how they're living their lives. And what I'm trying to point out in this book is that the evolution of those orientations is a part of developing a communal ethos in which there is difference of opinion, but some general sense of what matters and how we approach it and what our differences are and how much difference we can accept, how much we have to reject, the whole range of communal concerns, which Gestalt therapy had only given only minor attention. Of course, we have to understand that I have not been in private practice. I retired I don't know how long ago, maybe 30 years ago. So I'm not a part of the current scene, and some of what I'm talking about may already be being done, but I think it's worth noting and worth recognizing that we are more than a pathology-oriented system trying to solve pathology, and that we are a way of life system trying to orient people to how they're living their lives, how to integrate the contradictions that we all have to face, and helping people to live the best lives they can live.
Yes. So if I can summarize main concepts throughout your life, what stands out to me is the words enchantment, the now for next, and the life focus groups. But in
Yes.
this, yes, in this book, it seems to me that you have brought the perspective of enchantment, like a phenomenon of communal ecstasies, which is made possible by the sharing of an experience that, although human, transcends individuals.
Well, it may not be shared, or it may be shared more or less, but enchantment is an evolution from fundamental concentration. Concentration was the original principle that Gestalt therapy lived by before it was called Gestalt therapy. It was called concentration therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And the principle was that disturbance was dissociation and concentration was a recovery of attention. So Fritz was very much involved in the recovery of concentration. And in that process, he was able to recognize the relationship of the raw concentration to the concept of fascination. And I've taken it a one step further into the concept of enchantment.
And curiosity. And curiosity also. Curiosity.
Curiosity, yeah. Curiosity would be, there are a number of words that would fit this system that's
Yes.
based on concentration.
Yes.
But,
yes.
but the part of it that I've focused on in this book is enchantment, which is a way of concentrating that is almost microcosmic, that it not only is an experience of its own that takes you beyond your ordinary capabilities, it is worshipful of human potentiality, and it is a very large turn on for life itself. So, for example, if I'm a child watching a puppet show, I'm going to be enchanted with that, not only because of the technology of the dealing with puppets, but with the transcendence of my everyday life into the life of the world at large. I begin to know more about the world at large. And many of our favorite activities are like that. We are enchanted if we go to the theater and suddenly we hear the bells announcing that the curtain is about to go up. Our heart starts to beat faster. We are enchanted because we're going to be introduced into a new world, new for us, but relevant to us. It's our world, but one which we haven't yet incorporated into ourselves, and which we hope to incorporate and recognize that what we're doing now is a microcosm of the larger world, is so broad, so big, that is exceptionally attractive and draws our full attention. And it's that kind of enchantment which is built into psychotherapy, but which very few therapists recognize as a fundamental part of psychotherapy. When patient walks into the office and the therapist says hello, there's something most humanly warming about that experience. And we don't realize that things like that can expand a person's heart and knowledge and safety and recognition of what matters. It's that kind of simple enchantment that builds our sense of the world at large.
Yes. It seems to me that you bring aesthetics into the learning, into the process of learning. And this is very new.
Yes,
Yes.
aesthetics is one part of it. One part of it.
Enchantment is a word that makes you think about aesthetics. Enchantment.
Well, not necessarily. I'm enchanted if I go to a baseball game and the player dives and catches a ball while still in the air.
Yes.
It's a beautiful experience. You could call that aesthetics.
Because it's related to senses.
Well, in some sense, aesthetics deals with proportionality, with possibility, and so on. So, of course, aesthetics enters into.
Yes, because it makes you vibrate. It makes you vibrate. So it's related to senses.
Yes, but you may not emphasize aesthetics. Aesthetics is one of those human conditions that exists in the face of many other possibilities, many other interests.
Yes.
But which are very important. And we have to be tuned into this does not fit that. In other words, that what goes with what you're putting together is unaesthetic. It does not fit together. But that's also a matter of configurational validity.
Yes. Oh, to me, aesthetics is just, I use the word aesthetics to mean related to senses, not in a judgmental way. What is aesthetic or not aesthetic?
Well,
but to me, aesthetics means that comes from the senses, so from the body, feeling.
If you define it that way, that's okay.
Yes. So another thing, maybe the last one, because I don't want to get you tired, is about the way you write this book. While I was reading your book, I felt inspired, and I wanted to write to you. You know, it came to me the wish to write to you, to respond to you. So my feeling is that this book simulates action in readers. They feel enchanted as well, the readers, and they want to participate and to communicate with you or to do something. And I think this is the best, the best tradition in Gestalt therapy, not to create interjections, but to create creativity. And I think that you, not to create interjections, but to create creativity, to generate creativity in people who read your book. Do you hear me?
Well, I hear you. I don't know how to evaluate that. I know that that when you're dealing with enchanting experiences, you're halfway toward writing in a way that enchants people because the experiences themselves are enchanting. I'm glad you feel that way about my book, and I would not like the book to be boring. At the same time, I'm writing about things which are quite enchanting. So if I write a story about a particular person I worked with, and that story is an enchanting story, well, that helps the book to be enchanting.
Yes.
Because you're reading about something enchanting.
Yes, your book is enchanting. And I remember when I trained with you, when I work with you, it's the same feeling of being like playing a game with you, like throwing the ball to each other, and you wait for the right moment, and then you laugh, and we had a very good laughing together.
We laugh. Yeah, laughter is a big asset
Yes,
in any relationship.
yes,
And so if you can laugh, I remember the story. You've told the story before about when you first came into our training programs. You were only 23 years old. And I said to you, did you get permission of your father?
yes,
Well, I think it's funny. But that starts us off on a lightheartedness and a mutuality, and like we belong to the same world.
yes,
And that's a great step toward enchantment.
yes. So I want to thank you for this book and for all the other books, and for also your training activities, because I felt transformed in a positive way from being in contact with you.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I felt I could understand human beings better, being
Well,
transformed by you.
I'm glad to hear that. I understand something of human experience better if I write about it than if I don't. I am a long way from understanding it, but I like the process of moving toward it, moving towards some sensibility for what happens in the minds of people.
Yes. So thank you and good luck to this book.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Keep on being safe and healthy,
You
and
as well.
not any more isolated than the virus calls for, and finding ways of breaking through that. And I think that what we're doing right now is one example of moving beyond the virus into some communication. It's not, I'd rather be in a room with you, but I'm glad to be with you this way too.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.